Okay, just double checking.
The Portland Orbit, I presume.
Yes, it is. Yes, it
Very
is.
punctual.
I didn't. Yeah, I've got nothing if I'm not punctual at this
On
point.
the money.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm about to get fired from the Portland Orbit, but just gonna keep trying.
Well, hang in there. Hang in there. Change is always coming.
I am. Yes, I am hanging in there. I thought maybe I would just try to do these questions for you real quick, and then I just had wanted to talk to you about this video project, but I want to.
Yeah, I have the album up. Is this the conspiracy theory album we're talking about, or?
We are talking about the Kent State. Isn't that the latest?
Oh, the other conspiracy album. Yeah. Yeah, Kent State. That's our newest.
Yeah, actually, I think what I want to do, I usually do like a little intro write up. So I think what I'm going to try to do is ask the questions and then make sure at the end that I just, if I feel like there's some loose ends or just get a better idea of how this concept came about. But I think you probably will obviously answer that
Okay.
based on these questions. So I'm going to start.
Do it.
Oh, good. If you're ready, then I'll be ready.
I'm ready.
So what occurred to me is this the first Kent State concept album, or are you modeling this album after another Kent State concept album?
Well, that's a good question. I never really got in all the research I did for this. I didn't research that, but I think I should. Let me see if I can get his name. It's sort of a weird. I came. I meant to have this. Is that him? There it is. Okay. So I was. I think I came along this concept when I was in college, actually, and I think I got a book at a book sale. It was this James Michener's Kent State book. This big book that people criticize as being very wrong and one-sided in hindsight, but I think that's the name. Let me make sure I got the quote. Yes, James A. Michener, famous author, but what many view was the somewhat right-wing version of it. Anyway, that book haunted me throughout college on, because I really identified, I guess, with the situation. I was born 20 days after that day happened in 1970.
Wow. Yeah.
And by the time I got to Portland State, where I finished college, I found out they had a little mini riot in reaction to that riot, like a couple weeks later. And there's another famous shooting that doesn't get as much attention. That I believe it wasn't. I think it might have been in Missouri, but it was a all black student campus, and some National Guardsmen took shots, killed a few people in the dormitories there. So everything was erupting, and at that time, if you recall, the Gulf War was going on, so there was kind of similar vibes and stuff going on, and I ended up with this book, and so the concept was kind of out of that. I always had like elements of it, and the book's basically a timeline that really concentrates on it actually concentrates on 5 students and sort of goes through the events that builds up to that moment, and then follows those days that led up to it. And so that was essentially what I had in mind for this album, was to try and create that weekend in a concept album. So I don't know if anyone ever did that before musically, but as I was finishing up, I also wanted to mention Derf Baxter, D-E-R-F.
Wait a minute. Yeah.
And he had a graphic novel that does the same thing I did. It's amazing. I bought it. It's great. Phil Jefferson has it. I need to get it back from him. But so and I would say we were kind of in the final stages of overdubs and mixed sounds, so I wouldn't say that it completely influenced, but it definitely had some imagery, and I wouldn't mind trying to connect with this guy and try and trade some favors for each other, hopefully. But it's brilliant art, and he does a really great depiction of it. And with details I didn't know that were different from Mishner's book.
I'll apologize in advance for the snark, but are historical concept albums the best use of your history degree? I'm glad you're laughing.
Well, my parents, my dad would probably say no. My mom would probably say yes. So, kind of me in a nutshell. But I don't know. I mean, I think for the time being, it's things are weird right now. People are scared to give voice to certain ideas and narratives, especially if they're controversial. And I don't know. I mean, I've been studying a lot of these things a long time, so it just seemed like a natural way for me to communicate ideas that I feel aren't getting out there. Or if they are, this is my version of it, right? So.
Right. Yeah, that nicely brings me up to the next question, because, in researching this project and doing this album, what did you learn about the shootings?
Well, I'd say with the timeline of it's interesting because we recorded the music first and we didn't have the lyrics. We did kind of have rough themes of that weekend in our heads. But with the fun part with the music was very light when we did like the initial tracks. Then we'd layer tons of textures on top of it. And so we were pretty loose. And I learned that musically it was interesting to go. But as we started getting into the lyrics and writing of it, so that was like in 2019 actually, and so that was as we were finishing up Saul that we recorded those tracks. We kind of snuck in some sessions, and I said, okay, I'll sit with them. And so the overdubbing and lyrics really took another year to write, I'd say. And so it'd be unfair to not mention that like the protests and riots that were going on in Portland over last summer. Definitely played some context in it. I felt like the chants were, like this might be an opportunity to throw in some more new chants because things were getting so redundant on all sides. So I don't know. I mean, I think that the Conspiracy album has a few chant songs like that too. A lot of songs about presidents, LBJ and Tricky Dick.
Right.
Anytime you can get lyrics in about Tricky Dick. But yeah, no, I think that there was so as we built with that in mind, or I started to, and Commander, I mean, when we do these things, everyone throws in their 10 cents. We got to a point where I think when I was looking at this and the concept of the kids that died at Kent State, it was really interesting to kind of think of how much has changed and how little has changed in kind of this. In some ways, it's almost like the opposite going on. It's like a pro-authoritarian, and the guys are being anti-authoritarian.
Right.
And yeah, so, the big difference is the kids back then were protesting the Vietnam War, an obvious mistake and another conspiracy onto its own. Check out our song about the Gulf of Tonkin resolution if you have any questions there, but I believe that's on love and anti-war. But the Vietnam protest is what led to the entire confusion. And I also noticed like the guardsmen and the situation they were in and researching what led to those people being there and the decisions they decided to be armed, all of these things,
Yeah.
It's very similar to the police dealing with the protests this summer. And both situations, we're looking at the low-hanging fruit, and we're not talking about the politicians and governors and people that should know better, administrators, to calm this stuff down. Instead, it was similar in that they're just throwing more grease onto the fire.
Right.
What I observed. So there's a big word salad of things I learned.
Well, definitely that was what really inspired me to want to interview you, because you had sent me some research materials because I participated in this project. But in reading that, it was like, oh yeah, so this is not a new thing where politicians are blatantly lying and distorting facts. And I think that's where what led up to the shooting was a lot of misinformation, disinformation coming from what the governor and the mayor were getting from advisors.
Mm-hmm.
And, it really, yeah.
The interesting parallels are also that when the shooting happened, the town of Kent, they blamed the students. The overwhelming majority of people said the kids had it coming. How dare they provoke the guard like that, and they're unpatriotic and all that stuff, and letters into and the kids on campus actually had like 8 o'clock curfew for like the next 6 months or something weird like that, at least the rest of the summer. And so they were the Kent stayed locked down the entire time, and I think what happened in Portland is kind of like a weird reverse version of that. I had kind of a mirror, it seems, but to me, I don't know.
Well, again, that's part of this whole mystery. I don't mean to give it away. There probably is a trigger warning in this too, but you'll never really, really know why those guys started shooting. I mean, it felt like there was no general instigation. The kids that were shot were really from a pretty far distance. I mean, we'll never really know how that started.
Yeah, there's a lot of theories, but
yeah.
At the end of the day, to me, it's that low hanging fruit. It's like it never should have escalated to that point.
Yeah.
And, it was a lot of people with big egos trying to, as it seems these days still do, just all about the egos and the innocents get left behind when that happens.
Well, let me get back to the music here for a second, because you brought in Lint chocolate.
Yes.
How great was that to have him on board for this project?
Well, he was off tour recently, and he stopped in town to do some specials with Jackie Wolfman.
Yeah.
And so I just said, "Oh, Lint, can we grab you for a couple tracks here?" And we got him before, I guess Jackie and him had kind of a last final show with some tech glitches, and there was a big incident. But we got him while he was still hot and into it, and we gave him 2 star tracks, Jeff Swore and Kent State, Ohio. And Jeff Swore is about the student Jeffrey Miller, who I kind of felt somewhat attached to. He was the one flipping the dart off and got shot.
Yeah. Oh.
I mean, this is not funny.
That's all it takes, huh?
But I relate to that.
Yeah. You flip somebody off and they shoot you? I mean, that's...
Yeah. I mean, it seems I could be heading in that direction myself soon.
And it's possible that you were named after this guy? I don't know. I mean...
I don't think so.
No.
The interesting thing is, in May 1970, I guess Jeffrey and Heather were very, very popular names.
Ah.
I have to say, when I was at Holyrood Elementary in 2nd grade, I was Jeff D, because there were 3 or 4 Jeffs.
Nice, yes. Nice.
Jeff Tiffany, Jeff Somerville, Jeff Taylor, something like that. Yeah, 4 of us. But Jeff Tiffany had a G, so he kind of didn't count.
Ah, Jeff with a G. That's a whole other ball game.
Yeah.
And the layered sound and the recording techniques. What's your methodology for making the music portion of this?
I guess that's developed over the years of. I suppose the technology has made it, in my learning of the technology too, and I've got a lot of experience doing live music. So I have a philosophy about capturing the live sound one way, but then when you're putting it all together, the tapestry and the various textures, I think I tend to one track at a time turn into the mad Brian Wilson scientist thing, and we better get a horse in here for this part, just kind of like let's take each track at a time, each section, and this song, this album was probably more painstakingly done that way than past albums, and it might have been because the tracks were so loose that when we recorded them, there just ended up being a lot of room, a lot of how do we keep this interesting? How do we keep this moving along? And so I just kind of personally took it as a challenge, and I think everyone else, so Steve and John Spezza, the drummer and bassist, were basically done when they recorded, but Commander and I jumped on. Phil Jefferson's on a bunch of tracks.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Commander actually emailed me a lot of his vocals.
Oh, nice.
So
yeah.
That was the first time we did that, and so it was just wonderful. It was a blast, as well as you or Mr. David Craig giving me his audio samples online, somewhat randomly. I'm sure for you it was to figure out what that meant, but it really, I think, helped set the vibe of those two songs. The 2nd of May, and what with the other song? It's what did we put you on? The Informant?
Yeah, I might have done the governor or the mayor. I don't know if I did.
I know you're the governor. Oh, you're the mayor on Water Street Riot. That's
okay, I just tried to call up
Mayor Mayor Leroy Satrum in Water Street Riot. Yeah.
Yeah, I was calling up my brother's impersonation of our old elementary school principal. Just sort of that trying to get that authoritarian feel. Yeah.
Yeah, that Ohio accent. That was
man. Yeah. I did a little bit of research. Would you say there's a poppy number kind of in the vein of Saul McGarvey's Love Me Too? Anything like that jumping out, or are these more of that layered sound? Something.
I think that the obvious nod we were throwing at everything, especially when we started the basic tracks with no idea what we were doing. That was all kind of, it was like, well, we know the Diva went there. I was just beginning to research a lot of that. So we decided to try and give kind of our own subconscious Devo impulses to everything as we went through it. So that was definitely there. And as I started to learn and research more, I found things out like Chrissie Hynde of the Pretenders was there. So I think there's elements of her song Ohio that we're kind of throwing a nod to. There's, and of course, Joe Walsh was, he was a student not during the time, but he was in the James Gang at the time and was probably playing there every couple weeks,
Oh, wow.
At the bar there, yeah. So he was, so we threw Jeff's song, is Jeff's War is kind of a nod to the Joe Walsh style of singing, I guess you'd say.
Well, then,
the cartoony voice.
Yeah. Did you get any kind of inspiration then, obviously, from the most obvious song that I think, again, draws everybody's attention away from the real story? I mean, I feel like Kent State, nobody's ever really thought much more beyond that photo and that Neil Young song.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Poor Dead in Ohio. Yeah, which was a tall order for Lint Chocolate to try and capture our version of that, but I think he does a wonderful deal, and he did all that magic on his own.
Yeah.
No idea. What didn't witness it? He has a home studio, just, give me the song, shut up, It's great.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's, again, I would emphasize that this particular event, I never thought beyond that one day. Like, I just assumed, they all got up. There's this whole build up to this situation, which I think is really fascinating, that you're trying to introduce that and give people more perspective on what really happened. So are you thinking what's going to be the next best topic for a concept album for you? I had something in mind, but I forgot it. But then I was like, one example would be the insurrection. Would that be something that would make a concept album?
Well, I we're on a similar note. I think that one of the things this album's doing is it's kind of, Kent State, to me, the historic significance of it is similar to what Altamont did to rock and roll after, right? You've got Woodstock and this, oh my God, they came together and a baby was born and no one died, or I think some people did die, but it was an amazing communal be-in, and yet, 4 months later you have Altamont, where there's, drug pushers and stabbings and the
Hell's Angels.
The Hell's Angels are security force for the Rolling Stones, and some great Graham Parsons stuff in there. But I think Kent State sort of ended a lot of the optimism of the '60s, and then sort of rolled out this sort of diffuse '70s vibe where people, you throw in all the political assassinations, and I think Kent State was kind of like a breaking point on some level. So where I go to now, I don't know, because I think that in some ways, the insurrection is part of that broken dream from then. There's just a lot of things that we thought we were going to get after, and there's a real tribalization right now, so it's hard to say. I tend to, when things get kind of crazy, chaotic, I tend to look further back, I guess, for inspiration, when you can't really see what's around you being too inspiring. But, there's always opportunities for change, and there's a lot of, I'm kind of done with this time period here, because I feel the real future's in the youth, and where I kind of, I don't know. I think I'd like to go somewhere that doesn't involve the baby boomers so much. I think that's where I'd like to go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They've been involved in a lot of my concept albums. I give them a break.
Well, that might lead up to my last question here. Nicely. Hamilton, big fan?
I gotta say, I still haven't seen it. There's so many things I haven't seen yet. I don't. How is it? Did you see it?
No. I've seen bits and pieces, and
I've seen bits and pieces. I did a gig where they were. It was for the that music academy where they help people.
Oh, the FAM. Was it the FAM kids? Yeah.
Yeah, and they did
for the FAM.
I think Hamilton was the theme throughout.
Yes.
So I got a good taste of it from that event.
Yeah.
But I don't know how they were originally sung or written, and plus they were rewriting the lyrics to fit their event. So.
Yeah, I never really had to see it. I got the gist of it, and I just was like, probably not that into it. But I didn't even think it was up your alley, other than it's sort of a concept album. Brought to life.
A good point. I've been so lost in the Civil War stuff that I'm, I didn't really leave a lot of room for the Revolutionary War. I've been fascinated by that period, but, for me to approach Hamilton properly, I'd have to do a little research to know more about all the characters before I watch it.
Nice. That's good. Research is good.
I just want to say that we're trying to plan a live performance of Kent. Hopefully, we're going to have some online tickets available, and we're going to stream it live, I believe, on Saturday, September 25th is what we're looking at.
Yeah.
Hopefully, be more info coming out on that.
When you told me that, I think that's I might have to hold this until September, and because there's a tie-in, I might try to just promote your show through this interview. For what that's worth, but it might be better to run this a little bit later. But then I'm glad to just have it in the can right now. So
yeah, well, and I don't have any drummer on board yet.